Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm going to be reviewing Entropy from Board and Dice. Entropy is a 2 to 4 player Euro game of building out galactic civilizations. Civilizations might be the wrong terminology. I don't think you're building civilizations. You're building galaxies. You're building giant galaxies, suns, planets, ecosystems, all of that and more as you attempt to get as many points as possible before player-determined endgame is triggered. We'll talk more about a lot of things. Now, before I dive into this, well, actually a few things before I dive into this. Number one, this channel is sponsored by Allplay. More about them at the end of the video. Number two, this game has a lot going on. I will not be doing a rules teach over here. I'll be telling you the general structure of what you're doing, what a turn looks like, and then giving my thoughts and opinions. While everything does flow pretty smoothly once you're up and running, it is a lot to take in, and this is not a rules video. So to that end, let's give you the general idea of what's going on. You're building these galaxies. So you're going to start off with a starter galaxy, but then throughout the course of play, you're going to be moving your little scientists around this rondel to take a variety of actions. One of the actions you can take is gathering a sun. You can take a sun and put it out onto the board. That's going to be this action over here. So if you move your person over here, you go there, you activate that sun. There's a lot of symbols around the board. Don't get too overwhelmed by them. What you have to know right now is that there's actions around there. There's 12 actions, but really 3 are double, so there's 9 actions. The 9 actions are 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2, but you'll notice that this is the same as this is the same as this, and this is the same as this, so you have 9 actions on the board. All the other symbols, all these lighter gray squares, we'll come back to those, but those aren't actions. Don't be too overwhelmed. So, we're building a sun. There we go. We move that scientist over there. We are building a sun. We're going to go ahead and grab a tile to be able to place that sun on top of and start our little galaxy over here. Great. We now have that in play. Awesome. In order to do that, you're going to be paying energy. Building a sun costs various degrees of energy, and you also can upgrade a sun. You can build or upgrade a sun. So the same way we built this, we could have instead upgraded this to finding, this is 1A. 1A is over here, so we could have upgraded to either of these 2 solar systems over there, placing that in play. And you can slowly upgrade to progressively better and stronger solar systems that will give you more benefits. Also, when you upgrade suns to level 3 and 4, you're going to move along this track because that's what this track shows. If you upgrade to level 3 or 4, you go ahead and move your marker along the track, which is great. Why do you want to do that? We'll come back to that later. It's just worth showing you how these tracks move, because those determine the end game. Great, you now understand building and upgrading a sun. It costs energy, you build the sun, you put it in play, everything's going great so far. But then there's planets. You also want planets. That's where we're going to move to other spots on the board. Look at this spot over here. Maybe we move over here and we have a planet that we want to get. So over here, you're going to look at the planets on display. You're going to pay the mass shown. So suns cost energy, planets cost mass, and you'll put a planet planetary body into play. Maybe we build this one, taking this, we pay the 3 mass, we flip it over, we put it onto our sun over here, noting that I did choose a different player, so technically I'm merging the galaxies. Players have their own systems. I should note that so you don't get confused. We put that planet into play over here. Congratulations, there's now new symbols on this side because this is where asteroids go. We'll come back to asteroids later. That's going to be how you build out a planet over here. Now, a few other things to note because there's a lot of things to get into, but first let's talk about these spots over here. Whenever you move your scientists around the board, depending on how far you move, you get these bonuses. If you moved 1 spot, you take this bonus over here. Ta-da! That's going to be a bonus. If we move 2 spots, 1, 2, we take this bonus, which is less. This bonus gives you less. So this is the sun upgrading action, and if you had only moved 1, you would get 2 energy. If you had moved 2, you would get 1 energy, and if you'd move 3, you get no energy. That's the general movement system of the board. The further you move around the rondel, the less extra benefits you get. That's why all these other gray squares, they might seem overwhelming, but you don't have to be too overwhelmed by them. The main actions are the 2 spots in each of the 6 areas, and again, 3 of them are duplicated for 9 unique actions. That's going to be placing out our planets over here. But there's more. There's so much more going on in these solar systems. I mentioned asteroids. Let's talk about asteroids. Asteroids are going to be over here. When you gather these, you'll put them down on the board, paying either mass or life forms. We haven't talked about life forms yet, but basically, there's ways to get life forms in play. So when you get a life form into play, you're going to go ahead and, well, if you have a life form in play, you'll be able to go ahead and sacrifice that life form in order to build an asteroid, or you can pay 2 mass to build an asteroid. That's going to do a few things. It's going to activate the ability on the planet, and it gives you a symbol which can be helpful for playing cards. These are going to be cards over here. They're going to give you a variety of benefits, often more life forms, plus other stuff. stuff. Other stuff can be points, but it can be a variety of things. So take this card over here. This card requires 3 of those blue symbols over here, which you can have both on the asteroids as well as on the suns. So if you look at the suns, you'll see that there's various symbols on those suns. It also requires a life form, but it'll give you a better life form. It requires you have a life form, you don't have to give it up. But it'll give you a better life form, and it'll give you 6 points. That's one of so many different cards over here, and that's going to be the player card action over here. So we kind of have these ecosystems developing. We have solar systems, we have planets, we have life forms, all of that's great. Well, eventually, you can also put these habitats in play. That's going to be these guys over here. They can go next to either side of a planet to go ahead and sync up with the planet side, to either side of a solar system, to sync up with the planet. And when you have them, if you fulfill the requirements on the side, you can actually flip them to their better side. That, by the way, is going to be how you move this up over here. So when you flip a habitat, you're going to go ahead and move up on this track, which again is helpful. When you play an asteroid on a new solar system, you're going to move up on this track. It has to be a new solar system, so another asteroid here would not help. An asteroid over here would help us move again. That's going to be the way all of these things work over here. You upgrade when you upgrade your suns to level 3 or 4, when you add asteroids to new solar systems, or when you level up a habitat, you're going to move along these tracks, which is going to be one of the ways that endgame is triggered. So hopefully there's a lot of things going on here, but you're starting to understand a bit more of the various ecosystems in play. Get your solar systems, get your planets, get your habitats, get your asteroids, try to get all these things. They're all good for you in a variety of ways. Let's talk a little bit more about endgame and then dabble in a few more things before we go into my review. Again, this is not a rules video. There's a lot going on here. Endgame. Endgame is triggered when 2 triggers happen, and those triggers can either be a player getting to the end of this track, that's one trigger, we only need one more, getting to the end of the track again, that's another trigger. I should note, it could be a different player. Different players can trigger it. When 2 endgame triggers are achieved, endgame will be triggered. And that's going to be this track, and this track, as well as having a certain number of life forms. So when a player has this 3 basically stages of life, when you have a certain number of a stage of life, if I have 11 plus of these, I can take this and get 15 points. That's going to be amazing. But if I have 18 plus, I take this. And yes, you can have both of them. And if I get 18 of them, then I'm going to get this, and I'm going to be triggering endgame, and I get those 20 points. Again, it's 2 of those symbols. So any 2 of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, any 2 of those triggers. That's true for either of the advanced life forms as well. That will also help you get points. When you get to the end of the game, you're going to get points for a whole lot of things. You're going to get points for all the points you've acquired in-game so far, which will come from a variety of sources. You're going to get points for these directly on these life form tiles over here, and you're going to get points for these 3 tracks, depending on how far you've achieved. So for example, if you've achieved the very end of this track, you're going to get 10 points for each planet of the same type. Pick one planet type. For example, I pick oranges, and if I have 5 orange planets and I have this over here, that would be 50 points. Over here, it's going to be getting points for the number of habitats with at least 1 card played to it, and then the last one is going to be points for the number of different types of suns you have. So there's a variety of different types of suns, and the number of different them, you get 10 points there. There's a lot of ways to score points in-game as well, whether activating these various habitats. We haven't talked about this, but you can activate these as well. The cards you play will give you habitats. There's a ton of other small things to go to, including blocking scientists, including the way as you advance this track, you're going to get discounts at activating planets, which again is another thing we haven't talked about at all. You're going to have your personal tableau over here, which will give you your own unique asymmetry as far as how you level up these tiles in order to get more benefits. There's a lot of variety of benefits that are all happening as you try to figure out how to get the most out of the solar systems you're creating, but better than the other players in the game. I feel like I only did a halfway decent job on the teach. This is not, again, I'm not trying to do a teach, I'm trying to do general concepts over here. This is a lot going on, and teaching this is a lot. It flows very smoothly when you get into it. I can just say, play it and you'll see, but the information overload up front is a lot, which we'll come back to. But let's go ahead and talk about my review of what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking in the game. To start off with, I love player-determined endgames. More so in Euros, because I find Euros nowadays more and more are like, hey, you have 4 rounds. The first round you're going to do nothing, the second round you're going to do nothing, the third round you'll feel like you're doing a little bit, and the fourth round you'll finally feel like things are taking off, and then the game ends. Euros tend to have that arc where because of the increase in your engine, there's that aspect where you have to kind of time out the pacing of the game. Which is why it's so nice when I actually get a player-determined endgame, where it's kind of like, okay, whenever these goals run out, whenever two of these goals are achieved, that triggers endgame, because this game does have that first problem where the pacing feels incredibly slow when you start. It feels like I have to move around here and do this one thing, and I can barely afford anything, and the cards are too expensive, and I don't have things going on. It definitely feels incredibly tight going into it, but as you level up all the various things at your disposal, you will feel like you're able to do a lot more, and as you progress closer and closer to the end, you're going to jump from having one of those goals completed to two, but I do like having a player-determined endgame in general. The pathways to victory and build-up in here are very diverse. Do you want to focus very heavily on the suns and build a very strong engine? This track over here will give you discounts on activating your sun abilities. It's going to be trading in entropy. Entropy is the main mechanic of the game, so to speak. You'll be trading in entropy for a variety of benefits and getting a ton of extra actions out of there, and powering up this track will give you discounts on those things, so you can lead to a nice little engine going on there. You want to focus very heavily on these environments, building up these environments because of the fact that you can keep activating them. These environments kind of have an ability. Again, I didn't tell you about it, but whenever you land on certain actions, you can get the ability, and when you upgrade it, you get more out of the ability. So whenever I go ahead and I do the cards, I can go ahead and get 2 points and a life form. So there's a ton of things going on as far as how you build that up. Do you want to focus on a bunch of those so that every action you take is powered up? What about your personal player abilities over here? These can be incredibly strong, but they do require a lot of work to get them up and running. If you kind of wait on them, then by the time you get to them, you're not getting the same build up from them. But if you focus on them very heavily at the beginning, you're doing so at the cost of other things, which the entire game is constantly doing. The solar system progression in this game, the amount of ways you can progress your solar system is very satisfying to try to figure out your own personal puzzle. Some of it will be driven by the cards on the table. Some will be driven by which players are in the way, preventing you from taking certain actions. It's not really preventing, there's no really preventing, so to speak, but when a scientist moves, if another scientist is on that spot, you get less of these benefits, and because everything matters, taking less benefits feels like a trade-off that often isn't worth it. So there's so many things between the asymmetric player powers, between the ways the general tableau builds up, between the variety of what's actually available to get. These planets are kind of fixed, these stacks are the same all the way down, but these planets are all different over here. These solar systems are the same, but the planets are different, the cards are different, the environments are different, all of that. There's also different scoring modules you can place on top of these to vary things up as well. So there's a ton of different ways that the game can progress as you figure out how to maximize your tableau in this game. As far as things I don't like in the game, I'll start off with the thing I kind of referenced already. The rules overload on this is a lot. I have taught this to 2 different groups of people, and it is a lot. Like, it's one of those games where the first game, okay, I'm teaching it, no problem, great, we're all learning together, it's fine. By the time I taught it to the second group, I was like, I don't like teaching this to new people, because there's that... for me personally, this is like a random tangent teaching games. For me personally, the first teach is kind of like, okay, I've learned the game, but I'm teaching it and still picking it up along with you. Subsequent teaches are where I start to feel, okay, how much work goes into this teach, because there's just a lot going on. This is not a short teach, in my opinion. Maybe you'll have better experience with it. For me, I have not had the shortest teach with it, because there's just a lot of information. It's not that it's hard. It is very intuitive, and it flows very small of intuitive, right word. It flows very naturally once you get into it. But there's just a lot of things you have to be mindful as you're teaching, and that's just, information overload is information overload. So that is a small strike against it. I'll also say that the player powers, in particular, the player board, which arguably is one of my most fun ways, because that's asymmetry. You don't see that every game. Every game we kind of have the same general options, but the way you build into your tech, that's fun. There's 4 different sets of player powers, but they are very hard to build up into. So that kind of takes away a little bit from it, because going heavily into that felt very challenging. It feels like you have to choose a player power, maybe 2. It feels like you almost never could do all 3, at least not efficiently within your own boards. That's a small little thing as far as that goes. It's more just a limitation, or a feeling of limitation. It also didn't feel as connected to the cards as I would like. In general, these cards over here, sometimes they have very cool abilities on them, but they didn't feel as synergistic with the rest of the game. They do work, don't get me wrong, they work well, they do feel powerful. It just feels a little bit less clicky, the way everything clicks together. I felt less of that with the cards. And the nature of the rondel in general is definitely information overload, as well as a bit confusing, especially at lower player counts. Again, without getting too much into it, right now you'll see this little yellow thing here and not here. That means this is considered a share space for the purpose of blocking scientists as far as how the board's going to move. It's not the most elegant rondel as far as what I've seen. As far as what I can see others not liking, it can be a very slow initial burn and then proceed rapidly to endgame. I don't personally mind that. I'm just grateful for the fact that it is player determined endgame, as opposed to, you know, 4 rounds and make the math work. And then also I will say, I've definitely seen it happen that players can feel stuck behind a player. It can feel like you're constantly taking the action I want, and I constantly have to sacrifice to either choose the same thing, or alternatively skip ahead and change the pattern. Again, I don't mind that as much, because a single time you stick ahead, you'll change the pattern, and we're all playing on the same system, but it could feel, especially because of the early game setup, it could feel like I'm handicapped behind you in terms of the ideal sequence if I'm trying to do the same ideal sequence as you. This might make more sense if you actually play it, but effectively, you can feel like you're chasing chasing someone and doing so less efficiently unless you're willing to suck it up and jump ahead to get out of that pattern. As far as final thoughts on Entropy, I'm a little mixed on this one. I really enjoyed my plays of it. Like, I really enjoyed. Initially, I was tempted to give this a 4 out of 5. I'm not. I'm going to bump it down to a 3.5 out of 5. But I think a big part of that is the accessibility factor is a big thing for me. Because as far as the gameplay, if I'm just ranking this on gameplay alone and ignoring the sheer amount of tokens and table setup and teach, this probably would be a 4 out of 5 for me. The gameplay is very satisfying. The sheer amount of ways to upgrade is very satisfying. Finding your pathway forward is very satisfying. Every time I've played this, I have enjoyed the gameplay experience tremendously. It's been a very solid, very great game. The only two things really against it is that there's so many amazing games out there. That's one, but I try not to hold that against the game in general. But I think there's so many games, even by these same designers. I mean, Timon Batista, Simone Luciani, like Nesta Mangoni. These are a trio of incredible designers, and they have so many incredible games to their names. So it's already they're fighting against themselves as far as which Euros are hitting their table. But that's fine. That's just other games. The biggest strike for me personally is that I think between the teach and the sheer amount of component setup there is, I think this is definitely on the less accessible side in terms of the getting it tabled relative to some other games, or other games that might have the same amount of work, but are more rewarding. So overall, I did like it, I do enjoy it, I am going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. Again, gameplay alone would probably have gotten a 4, but taking into account the accessibility, dropping it down that half a point. As far as other game recommendations, definitely check out SETI if you're looking for another space age game. That's very a lot going on in that one as well. Also a lot to teach. Well, actually, I think it's a little simpler to teach, but I think it's a much more rewarding engine. And also check out Galileo Galilei if you're looking for kind of that rondel. This game gave me very similar vibes to Galileo Galilei I just realized I'm recommending 2 games by Thomas Hullock, but that was unintentional. But Galileo Galilei has a kind of similar pacing as far as trying to hit your own rondel and re-hit it at the right points to maximize how much you get out of the engine. And I felt that feeling in Entropy as well. And I mentioned at the beginning that Allplay is a channel sponsor. If you go to allplay.com, you can find a variety of games, both from Allplay and their partner publishers. And if you're in the US, you can get everything for $4 flat rate shipping. And if you're looking for another space-themed game, check out Galactic Cruise from Kinson Key Games that you can get from there. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.